We have been making similar calls for the last 25 or 6 years, but now it's getting more urgent. In particular, we have the ongoing genocide in Gaza, which is not getting much attention in recent times, but children and adults are still being killed in Gaza and in the West Bank almost on a daily basis. The war against Iran by Israel and the United States has taken on a very dangerous series of turns. There's a risk of nuclear war or a nuclear explosion or whatever. Clearly, hundreds of people are being killed in Iran at the moment. We also have an invasion of southern Lebanon by Israel. The Irish peacekeepers have been put in danger. And Ireland is facilitating the war in Iran. It's facilitating the Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon and the genocide in Gaza as well by US military use of Shannon Airport.
And just to press you on that last point there, the claim that Ireland is facilitating the genocide in Gaza and indeed the illegal actions of the US in Iran. We spoke to Timmy Dooley, Clare's Fianna Fáil Minister of State, recently, and when it was put to him that Ireland is playing a role in what was happening in the US at the time, the ICE deportation flights, which, as we know, some of which went through Shannon Airport, he said that Ireland is not playing a role. He refuted that point and he said that under legislation which has been in place for some time, Ireland is required to allow civilian aircraft to pass through Irish airspace. And of course we know that the government will admit to civilian aircraft passing through, but no planes bound for warfare or battle zones. What do you make of that assertion that Ireland isn't playing a role on that basis?
Timmy Dooley, of all people, based in County Clare, should know very well that that's untrue. Yesterday alone, 7 aircraft directly associated with the US military either passed through Irish airspace or were refueled at Shannon Airport. Some of these were going to and from the Middle East. Clearly, possibly up to 1,000 troops passed through Shannon or through Irish airspace. All these soldiers would have been carrying automatic rifles with them. We have been actively facilitating the US and thereby facilitating the wars in Afghanistan or in Iran and the genocide in Gaza. I'm surprised that Timmy Dooley seems to think that this is all okay. Also, can he explain why 3 large NATO countries, Spain, France and Italy, have now imposed quite serious restrictions on the US military flights over their airspace or through their airports?
And
our government is in gross breach of international laws and neutrality, in breach of the Genocide Convention by being complicit in genocide. These are very serious charges.
And just to come in on a comment that you made there, that Timmy Dooley seems to think this is okay, referring to the actions in the Middle East. I don't know if he said that any of those actions are okay. It's more that he said that Ireland isn't playing a direct role. But I want to ask you, Edward, about one of your calls here. So calling for restrictions to be put in place by the Irish government to prevent, or at least, as we say, restrict the US military from accessing our airspace or bases. Similar restrictions put in place across Europe. You've long called for inspections of planes coming through Shannon Airport. Are you still looking for inspections, or do you believe we're beyond that at this stage? Do you believe that restrictions are needed?
I think if the government did agree to do some inspections, they would be bogus inspections, basically. And clearly, even if the US military planes are going through empty, they would still be in breach of Irish neutrality, and we will still be facilitating. But the reality is that all the planes virtually going through Shannon Airport associated with the US military are carrying soldiers. The soldiers are armed. The Irish government and the US government are claiming that all the military planes are not carrying weapons and are not involved in military operations. That is false information. no US military aircraft ever leaves the United States without being on a military operation. Tens of thousands of US military planes have been refueled at Shannon Airport since 2001. It's inconceivable and quite simply untrue that none of these are involved in military operations. So we are actively facilitating crimes against humanity and wars of aggression.
This conversation usually comes back to the question of neutrality. Indeed, it's a point that you make quite often, that the US military's use of Irish bases is a threat to our neutrality. Now, the government would say that they don't have to agree with the actions of the US military to have what you might call a working relationship with them, but the point could also be made that it's not allowing Russia to use its bases. So clearly there's a sense of kinship with the US from the government point of view. I mean, is there a threat to Ireland's neutrality, and is there a direct threat to Ireland if we continue to allow the US military to use our facilities and our airspace while this war in Iran is going on?
I would even say there's a direct threat to Shannon Airport, particularly with the war in Ukraine. Under international law, Russia would be entitled to take action against any country that is facilitating the war in Ukraine, and the US has been actively facilitating that. So in theory, in fact, Russia would be entitled to bomb Shannon Airport to prevent it being used by the US. Now, clearly, that's unlikely in the case of Iran, but at the same time, thousands of people have already been killed over the last month in Iran, Lebanon, and Gaza in particular. And Ireland is complicit in those killings, and many of those civilians killed are young children. We had a school bombing on the 28th of February, just over a month ago, in which up to 170, mainly young girls, were killed. And this was not by Israel. The US has more or less admitted that several Tomahawk missiles, at least 2 of them, struck that school. And we have facilitated the same US military going to Shannon Airport on the day that was happening. There were at least 2 or 3 US military aircraft located at Shannon Airport.